the average Indian household spends nearly 24% of their total annual income on children's education, and financing of education fee is on top of minds for Indian parents as a huge concern and worry. Well, there is one firm, which is a fintech firm, GrayQuest. They're helping parents to actually convert the school fee payment into easy installments and offering several complimentary goodies like an insurance cover. Recently, the company has also been funded, and it's a $7 million Series A fundraise by the Wiseman Group, Telama Family Office, as well as individuals from the Pidilite family and from Shadi.com's Anupam Mittal. Joining in right now on the show is Rishab Mehta. He's the founder and CEO of GrayQuest. Thank you so much, Rishab, for taking time out and joining in. So let's just understand the concept first up as to how GrayQuest works, because, you know, heavy annual fees that are charged by schools, it's a huge worry, particularly in the time of COVID, for instance. That led to a drop in a lot of families' incomes. So that would have been a cause of worry for a lot of families. How does GrayQuest come in and save the day?
Sure. Thanks for having me here. I'll just give you a brief context about what we at GrayQuest are building for the education ecosystem, right? So we're effectively building a payments platform that helps education institutions collect their fees better, digitizes fee collection for education institutions in India, and at the same time enable parents with multiple different payment options to pay, so that each parent can pay their children's education fee as per their convenience, right? If they want to take the monthly payment option, they can take that monthly payment option. If they prefer to pay in larger quarterly or half yearly installments, they can choose to pay in that structure. Or if they even prefer to pay the full year's fee upfront to their institution, annual fees upfront to the institution, and take a discount, we enable them to do that, right? So effectively what we're doing is, in the education ecosystem, there are three stakeholders. There is the management team of a typical education institution, and when we speak of education institution, of course schools is a big part of it, but it's everything from a preschool to a K-12 school, colleges, universities, coaching classes, and even some new edtech institutions that are growing as we speak now, right? For all of these institutions, there are effectively three stakeholders in this ecosystem, right? One is the management of these education institutions. Second is the admin and the finance teams of these institutions, and third is the parent, right? What we realized in the last 4 years that we've been servicing this ecosystem is each of these stakeholders has significant pain points relating to fee collection and fee payments respectively, right? And for the management, the realization of the fees is often delayed. Parents often delay their payments, quarterly payments or monthly payments, and they often have to do a lot of follow-ups, and their cash flow is consequently disturbed, which which leads to cash flow mismatches when they're planning their expenses to run the institution, right? At an administrative level, a typical education institution will collect fees in almost 7 to 8 different modes or platforms, right? So a typical parent or a typical institution will allow parents to pay fees in cash, pay fees by coming to the school and swiping a card via POS machine, pay fees by coming to the school and scanning a Google Pay QR code, transfer fees to their bank account via NEFT, RTGS, use an online payment gateway to pay the fees via the ERP portal, or use a EMI facility, which we pioneered in this segment, where they receive the fees upfront and the parent pays the fees monthly, right? So if what we see is almost 7 to 8 different platforms or payment platforms that are being used by education institutions to collect fees from the parents. What we realized is we can consolidate all of these platforms into a single platform, a unified checkout that we offer to education institutions, and they don't have to reconcile with 7 to 8 different platforms to just figure out which parent has paid them the fee and which parent has not. At the same time, at the parent level, we enable multiple flexible payment options as we spoke earlier. This includes the EMI option that you spoke about. So in the EMI option, the way it works for the parent is, let's say the institution's annual fee is 1 lakh, right? The parent can just split their annual fees into monthly payments, 10, 12, as per their discretion, typically without paying any additional extra cost. and pay as per their convenience. And the institution can in turn choose to receive their entire year's fee upfront or in a structure that they seem suitable to manage their cash flow. So it's really turning out to be a great win-win for both the institution, their administrative team, as well as the parent and the student community across every institution that we're working with.
Okay, so that's giving us a roundup of what exactly the company does. So Rishab, let's address the news as well. There was a $7 million fundraise that was led by Pravega Ventures, and there was also participation from some family investors like the Wiseman Group, as well as Apurva Parekh of the Pidilite family, and other investors included Kunal Shah of Crore, Anupam Mittal, the founder of Shadi.com, etc. Marquee names, tell us a little bit more about what the funds will be utilized toward.
We just closed a Series A financing round. The round was raised by an institutional investor called Pravega Ventures. They're a deep fintech investor and have investments in multiple fintech companies in the country. A few family offices, some new family offices came into this round as well, such as the Apurva Parekh, and he's part of the Pidilite family group, and the Wiseman Group and the Telama family office. There are a couple of existing family office shareholders who are already investors in GrayQuest. They also, increased their investment in the company. These are, the family offices of Ambit Capital founder Ashok Wadhwa and Yogesh Mansaria. What we intend to do with this latest fundraise is just expand our, product and suite of solutions that we're offering to this education ecosystem to cover wider use cases and to solve many more problems that we have identified inside this ecosystem for both the education institution and the parent community. The second major, and when we speak of expanding our suite of solutions, that will translate into investment into product teams and engineering teams to help build that. The second major area of investment for us is going to be to expand the reach in geographically. We still cover only the most, some of the largest school chains and some of the largest universities are live with us. However, we still think we have headroom to cater to almost 50,000 to 70,000 more institutions over the next, couple of years. So we're actively expanding our distribution reach across the country, all 5 zones of the country, and, ensuring that the platform is available to more and more institutions as we speak.
So tell us then, Rishab, how many educational institutions currently are you associated with in the country and which cities?
So we're currently associated with almost 5,000 education institutions across, preschool, schools, colleges, universities, and edtech institutions. These include some of the largest school chains in the country. I think we often give out a phrase that all of India's top 10 largest chain schools use GrayQuest to power their fees, right? Both to enable flexible payment options for the parents and to digitize and streamline their own fee collection. And each one of them is now trusting GrayQuest to power their fees. And we think that's a very strong testament to how our product is adding value to their ecosystem. So, we work with 5,000, as I said, 5,000 plus institutions. These include, some of the very marquee school chains, a lot of large universities such as Amity University, Sharda University. There's a university in Bombay called Atlas Skill Tech University. Some of these universities as well use our product.
Okay. Now, while you operate pan-India, I understand that close to 60% of the total revenue comes from the west and the south of the country. Is that something that you look to change or penetrate deeper into the other geographies?
So, of course, because we started out in Mumbai, a lot of our earlier partnerships were based in the city, and that led to a larger share of the revenue coming in from the western and southern parts of the country. But I think we have not scratched the surface in terms of the true potential, and we're only just getting started, both in our existing institutions, in terms of our impact on our existing institution partnerships, as well as going out and reaching out to new institutions across the country. So and that's what we are going to utilize the fundraise proceeds as well to expand distribution pan-India level. But of course, as we speak right now, the west and the southern parts of the country are slightly more concentrated for us than, let's say, the northern or the eastern parts of the country.
Okay. Let's talk about the part that every founder is hesitant to discuss, financials. I believe that revenues have grown nearly 4 times in 2021 and in 3x in 2022. What's the growth projection? Even if you're not going to share with me numbers, can you walk us through what kind of growth projections you have for GrayQuest?
Sure. So, as we spoke, right, from 2021 to 2022, we grew about 4x and a similar growth rate last year. Of course, as the base of the company is increasing, keeping up with those growth rates becomes slightly more of a challenge. However, because of the various new initiatives that we have undertaken in the last 12 months, we actually think we're going to grow faster this year than what we've done in both of those last 2 years. And that's something that we're super excited about. So we're looking at a very healthy growth rate in terms of not just our core metric, which is financing, but also a very large uptick in the total payments that we are processing through our platform.
Now, there have been a lot of steps as well that have been taken by the government. For instance, the national education policy in the country. There have been progressive changes as well that have been made by the government. Given that India does hold a fairly important place in the global education industry, do you think enough has been done, and what more would you like to see being done?
Sure. So, India's education ecosystem is very unique. Very, very large sector of the population prefer to send their kids to private schools, almost 50% or more. This statistic in any other large global economy is less than 1%, right? Where private schools are used only by a very elite section of the population. But in India, most households with disposable income prefer sending their kids to private schools, which they perceive to as having better quality. Now, the introduction of the NEP or new education policy by the government has been looked at by the education ecosystem as a very forward-looking framework. Some of the nuances in the education policy, such as allowing students to switch courses or switch streams within universities or even outside of the universities through the credit framework, right? So a student is no longer tied to one university for 4 years, right? He could pursue few courses in a liberal arts in a few courses of economics in a university that is more famous for liberal arts courses, and correspondingly pursue a technology course from another university which has a better recognition for their engineering programs, and combine both of those credits across both of those universities to get to his 4-year degree or a 3-year coursework degree, right? So the American system is based on this credit framework. So that is a big introduction. And I think that's going to add a lot of competition for various universities to increase their increase their delivery of academic programs, because if students find better quality elsewhere, they are no longer tied to one institution. So that's just one example of how the NEP will significantly transform the ecosystem, both for the betterment of the students as well as the parents in India's education ecosystem.
What's the outlook then when it comes to your growth plan? What is the trajectory for GrayQuest down the line, and where do you see the company headed?
Sure. So this year, we're focused on building deeper payment solutions to capture a larger payment wallet share for most of our existing partnerships as well as the new partnerships. And that is going to be a 18 to 24-month outlook for us to just have a larger payment share flowing through our platform. And a significant part of that payment share will be, of course, credit product, where a parent is choosing to convert the fees into monthly payments or an EMI product, which is the core revenue generator for us. I think we are well on course to be one of the largest payments processor in India's education ecosystem within the next 18 months. So that's something that we're super excited about. And it speaks volumes where a company that's been relatively a recent newcomer in the payments landscape in the education ecosystem. And for us to be one of the largest processors of payments in the country is, I think, a validation of what our product is doing for this ecosystem.
All right. Wish you all the best. Thanks so much for joining in on Startup Central.
Thank you.